okay, Riley, here we are. We did it. Isn't it fun? We finally got in the same room and we get to have these fun discussions. And, to me, you're on a pedestal with leadership. Because I don't know many people that have led people to physical success in rowing like you have. So let's talk a little bit. Let's do it. Let's talk a little bit about leadership.
Sure.
And tell me, when did you recognize that you really enjoyed being a leader and that you were good at coaching?
So it really started for me wanting to be a teacher. So that's what I started with. I knew that very early on. And I'm not sure why. I'm not sure. It could have been a great teacher. I had great teachers when I was a little kid, but it just, whatever it was, it really resonated with me that I want to grow up and I want to be a teacher. And I held on to that. And then in college, I was introduced to this sport that I do, rowing. And once I graduated, or certainly as I was getting close to graduation and moving on, deciding to go for the national team, kind of what the path was at the time, I started to realize that this was my opportunity to teach, that I could become a coach. Someday, I wasn't looking for it right away, but eventually that would be a good way to fulfill this lifelong yearning to teach. So that's really where it all started. And then, once you start to move into that role and you need to become a leader through that, so I wasn't going in saying, well, I know everything, therefore this is what I need to do and I can lead an army. It was, man, I love communicating with people. I love when light bulbs go off when you're working with young kids or with peers, anybody. And that just is so rewarding to me and so enjoyable. So that's really where my path started with becoming a coach. And through that, I learned, sometimes the hard way, how to become a leader.
I can so relate to the light bulbs.
Yeah.
Like at the university when a student would get something and you're like, yes, you get it.
It's so great. It's so great.
Yeah. Oh, so tell me what it was like the first time. Now, you had your own career, which sounds like it was pretty rewarding. But then tell me the first time that you knew you were putting somebody in a position that they were winning. Like, what did that feel like?
My career as an athlete, right. So once I started to, I had a plan towards the end of my athletic career, right, just that this was it. I was going to be 30, and whether I made it to the Olympics or not, I was going to stop and, move on, right? Get a real job. So I immediately, I had a morning because I didn't go to the Olympics that year. So I had to kind of get through all the grief of that and go through the process of letting go of this very long athletic career. And I first thought, well, I just need a break from the sport. And so that's what I started with. But my coach, at that point, my most recent coach, he said, I'm sorry. No, it's time to start right now. Like, I need your help right now. Like, I'm so well done on your career, but it's time for you to immediately give back. He's like, I need your help.
What a gift.
So I was like,
no gap year for you.
Okay, right. That's what I meant. I'll be there tomorrow. And I had the opportunity to then, see the other side of the whole operation, right? See behind the wizard's curtain, right out of the gate. And that coach was, has always been hugely influential on my coaching style and what I learned from him, the way he communicated the sport, the way he interacted with the athletes directly. It was just that it was so helpful and so impressive. He a fantastic leader and still is. And so once I started down that path, but then I also have an ego because that's as
well, you've been there,
when you decide, when you found this thing that you really love and you get passionate about, you feel like I have now knowledge to pass forward. This coach has given me so much, and he has his experience that he puts into his leadership as a coach, but I also have mine. And so I started to find my voice, in those first couple of years working with him. And that was really, that's really when it started, and those light bulbs going off for athletes as they got better and faster. And when I started to realize that the ways that things had worked for me are not going to work for everybody too. And that's part of it, right? Is learning to not just project, you onto the next generation. It's to take in everything you've learned and, pass it forward, but also accommodate the person you're communicating with is so important.
Oh, that's just wisdom right there.
Right.
I mean, that is some good wisdom for anybody who is coaching, teaching, or passing on knowledge.
Right. That it doesn't matter how knowledgeable you are if it doesn't result in them understanding and be able to do the thing. Cool.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter, man.
Yeah, which that goes right along with my make and model concept of that people are make and models, and if you are treating everybody like a BMW, then you're ignoring the value of the farm truck. And the farm truck on the farm is amazing. Right.
Not need a Ferrari on the farm.
No, not helpful.
So,
you bring up something though that I have never really thought of, and it's kind of opening my eye to the power of this, is the thought of that athletes would have to have grief. Because I mean, I went through a really hard divorce, which is a grief. It's a loss. It feels like it's a death of something that you thought you wouldn't, you couldn't see the end that way.
Right.
So I never thought about an athlete actually having to close a chapter and to have a grief period.
Yeah, it's so important. And there's a lot more resources going into that now. A lot of transitional resources for, Olympic athletes moving into, again, the real world, moving into a different career path. Michael Phelps is an excellent example of that. He talks about it very openly, very candidly, kind of his process with mental health. But, he, with his, success, he was able to capitalize on that in this area and just really say, hey, we need resources around this, for sure. But for everybody, again, whether you make it or not, and I didn't even get the opportunity to go to the line, the way that Phelps did, certainly, but still I had put everything that I was into it for many, many years, and then to have to change your identity, and I immersed myself in it, and I was very indulgent, I just in terms of feeling sorry for myself for those first few months. And one of the things that I did was I started volunteering with a local charity, working with kids in Washington, D.C. on reading skills and math skills, and just mentorship as well. Yeah. And once I started doing that, in the first month, the first few sessions, and I get back to that teaching piece of me, and math is my background. So to work with little girls who are coming back into the classroom for math was just that just really resonated and just made me feel good. But it also made me realize, if someone had homework, actually, there was an apartment fire next to me last night, so my homework got all singed, but here it is, and it's like, for me, I was like, I just filled me with gratitude, right, and a reminder, like, I was so lucky to do what I had done as an athlete, and that the real world is now here, and it's always existed around me, and now it's my turn to roll up my sleeves and take care of everybody else. Wow. So that was really helpful for, which, I'm kind of reluctant to say truly, because I wish that I had really, I'd had the appreciation no matter what. But it took that, interacting with the community and working with these children that really had real struggles. They were not living with their parents. They were, maybe not even know who their family is, and just a lot of
adversity.
And a lot of adversity. And so for me to understand, just put back in perspective. It's not that I was.
Well, and let's give you some grace here, because the grieving process, I mean, we've got, first of all, it never is in order. And we've got the bargaining, the anger, the depression. If we're lucky, we get to places of acceptance. Right. And hopefully you can have the acceptance and then take it back. Right. That's what I was the queen of. I'm like, I have finally landed on acceptance. I've accepted this new rule in my life. I take it back, and now I'm bargaining. How can I stay somewhat still connected? I love that. So, so then tell me, you're now coaching. We've got you. You're this young coach. You're kind of trying to figure things out.
Mm-hmm.
And what was your first big hurdle? Because you had a health hurdle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've been coaching at that point though for about 6 years. Well, I've been coaching for about 8 years, but I'd become the head coach of the program within about 2.5 years.
Okay.
Which I think the head coach at the time, who encouraged me to come out and work with him, he knew that he saw it in me that she's going to want to take this over. Let's just get her started. So, and he was right, and very gracious in the whole thing. But it was really, I think, by 2000. And I apologize, I'm just trying to put this back together here. So it was by 2011 that I really had started to see success in athletes that I was developing from a very novice level up to the national team, and that was wonderful. So now I'm rolling with those kinds of athletes and able to develop them, and again learn so much from them. As much as I'm teaching them, I'm also learning so much about just people, myself,
and a new identity of passing on your passion,
right,
and your skills,
finding my voice within that. Exactly, and balancing that out. I'll just quick add, within that time frame, I also was coaching women who were much older, so they were outside of the Olympic development path. And so it was what's called a master's program. So now we're, you could be 30, but you could also be 90 in row just as adults, right?
That's amazing.
So I was at practice one morning as an assistant coach, and one of the ladies approached me from the team. She sat down next to me and she said, "Listen, I see you here every day. Do you think you could show up 2 hours earlier and work with us too?" And now this was at 7 a.m. So now she's asking me to show up at 5 a.m.
Oh my goodness.
And I said, yeah, sure. Because I was, I was a yes.
I was going to say, somebody can't say no.
Right. So I said, okay.
Wow.
So, but that led me through that period of my coaching evolution and development, was working also with this master's group of women in the mornings and the evenings. I mean, I was just, I was working my head off to.
So you were the burning the candle at both ends.
Oh, big time.
Literally.
Yeah. And, but through that experience, because now I had not only to communicate the sport to athletes that really our life experiences weren't that different when you think of globally, how different people's life experiences. My path wasn't that different from most of the athletes I was working with. Okay. But now working with these women who had maybe come into the sport at the age of 70 because their partner had passed, their spouse had passed, and they needed to get out of the house. They were looking for something new. They saw us down on the river every day, and they said, I want to try this thing. So, which is just to say that now I all of a sudden had this new demographic that I had to learn how to communicate with, right? The sport, because they had no frame of reference, for physical movement, perhaps, you put them in the boat. I said, well, why? Well, yeah, but tell me why. So, well, wait, what? How do I have to back up that far for you to understand that this is how this happens? So it was, man, that to me, and I will always be so grateful for those ladies, this group of women. There's about 30 women, and what they poured into that period of my life in terms of, just developing, again, my voice and communicating anything, sport, but anything to people. And it was really, really special. So that, because it helped elevate what I was able to do with the Olympic hopefuls that much faster, truly. Because it was so impactful. So that was, I would, encourage any coach starting out to start with kids, start with old people that maybe had never done a sport, just find a wide group of people, a diverse group of people to work with. So that gets
you to simplify too. I mean,
for sure.
When you have to go to crazy story is that I ended up in a doctorate program, and I'm the doctorate program dropout. I decided that was not the right doctorate program for me. But it's interesting going to the root, the origin of something. Like for me, it was emotional intelligence.
Yep.
Getting to the origin of it and learning about the guys in the basement at Yale that were
Right.
nerd alerts,
Right.
and that their story behind that gets you to the basics,
Right.
the simplest form of what you do in your craft.
Yep.
So
Which
I
is
love
so
that.
wonderful. Right. So, because I hadn't touched that, since I had first started drawing, so at that point, in 15 years. So
it was back.
It was so special, and it really just ramped my ability to impact the elite athletes, the high performance athletes that much quicker. And then, so I'm rolling, and then I
you have an abrupt
diagnosed. Yep. In 2015, I was diagnosed with stage 3C ovarian cancer. Yep.
Wow.
So
you are like, talk about a gut punch.
Oh yeah.
So you've got all this stuff going. You're burning the candle at both ends.
Right.
So you probably think you're exhaustion and just, I'm overworking.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
Well, fortunately, although how far it advanced is a kind of an indicator of how fast ovarian moves. But I knew I had the gene because my sister had been diagnosed with breast cancer about 5 years previous. So I knew, and I went and got tested. So I knew that I also carried the gene. So I was doing screenings, but that summer I was diagnosed in the month of July, and I just did a screening, and I thought, and I almost blew right through it because I was off to a race. I was, we were into competition, and I just, I don't have time. I'll do it when I come back. I'll do it when I come home, and the fact that I said, no, I got to do this one thing. Yeah. It blew up all the other plans I had behind it, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So that was, it was very abrupt, and we had to move very quickly to go through.
So again, I mean, you've already experienced this time of a grieving where it's, you identified as something and then you had it seemingly taken away. Did you feel like you were going to have to do that again? Was there a fear that you might have to do that again? That this thing you're passionate about might be taken from you?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you go to the extremes. Of what life is going to look like after, for sure.
And were you able to focus on, I mean, how did you even process? Was there oh my gosh, I could die from this? And then there's that's a huge spectrum. If we go from my career to putting people on the podium to I might die.
I just need to not have a colostomy bag on me for the rest of my life. That was a big one. Like death. Will I need that? Will this, just drastically impact my, normal life, what I've, lived my, up until that point, how much is this going to change it? And things like that. I don't know. There were parts that were very heavy and dark and worrisome. And then other parts of me, I think still I knew I was going to fight it, and maybe that's not even the right terminology, but it's because once you start going with surgery and medicine and all of that, it's not so much that you're fighting as much as you're just getting on the train. Just like get on the train.
I'm on the train.
So I'm on it, and I actually don't have a lot of control right now, but I'm on it, and I think that it was mostly, I was optimistic about that. I trusted getting on the train. I trusted that.
So it's like trusting the process. Yep. You're like, I'm on this train, and I have a faith in the process.
Yep.
That this is going to get me to the other side.
Right. So I was scared for sure, but I also was, this is going to work. Of course it's going to work. It has to work. I mean, there's no choice here.
I love how you were like resolved.
Yeah.
It's going to work. I will have to look this up to see who said it, but there's that quote of whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't.
That's it.
That is
it.
That is what it will be.
Yeah.
I totally botched that, but I'll look that up for viewers and make sure that I put the right quote down there. So you had this belief, and now my philosophy, that I have this philosophy that there are times in our lives that it can be too painful to be us, and so we have to disconnect.
Yep.
And when we disconnect, if we stay in that disconnection, our lives can be about everything and everyone else, but we don't feel at home in us.
Oh,
Did you ever have that experience?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, no, there was no part of my physical being that felt like home at all during that period. Emotionally, truly, physically, mentally, any of it. I mean, and that's the drugs. I think that's maybe in some ways a good thing. If you really think about it too hard, man, you can really down a bad path. Negativity and just pain. But I think, it was so surreal in that way. Just not feeling like myself at all. Like I was in somebody else's body, like living somebody else's life almost.
Yeah. Which there's some of that, disassociation in psychology, like that term gets a really bad rap. But the truth is, it's a great coping mechanism.
Right. It exists that exists for a purpose.
It is just supposed to be acute. It's not supposed to be long term.
Right.
And many of us have used it as a long term. But
absolutely. Yeah.
So when you started to realize, okay, I'm going to have to do some disconnection here. I'm going to have to get through this season of my life. When did you decide it's time to re-engage and to get to know Riley the person instead of Riley the athlete, Riley the coach, Riley the cancer survivor?
I think we're still working on that. Yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, I think I'm certainly closer to it than I've been ever in my entire life, but very much still getting there. My identity is very, very much wrapped up in my career, for sure. So without that, being able to say who I am is very difficult for me, I would say.
Well,
still getting there.
I think you're wonderful, and you know that I think you're wonderful. But one of my favorite moments in our working together that I still just love is the minute that I got to use your coaching aptitude against you. And to say, if your girls didn't show up, or you coach men too, don't you? So if your people did not show up and did not do the work, they would not have the ability to do what they do.
Right.
And so I loved getting to use that to say the importance of daily self-connection and getting to really know those innermost parts is the payoff is massive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although, in full confession, viewers, I was complaining about my weight gain earlier. So, and not completely connected and accepting, myself. So, shame on me for modeling the bad behavior. But I'm glad that we're getting to work and we're getting to do that. And it's a daily, I work my tail off to stay connected because it'd be a lot easier to still fall into that overserve and under know myself.
Right. I mean, because, I think about kind of the waves, the seasons of your life for everyone to go. So I made a huge move from Washington, D.C. to Oklahoma when I had within months of finishing my treatment from cancer. And so that was, of course, a massive shift. So now I'm getting my feet under me, getting things going, and then COVID hits, and so then we, in some of us, certainly more than others, just really kicked in that serve and take care of everyone else, make sure everybody else's glass is full through this period of time, especially as a coach. I wanted to do anything to make the athletes feel safe and seen and all of those things. So I think that, and that was such a weight that I put on myself, and I think a lot of people put on themselves, and they really got disconnected from themselves. And so I think that probably within the last 2 years, probably me reaching out to you was like, not that I could reconnect to myself, but I really started to understand finally, like, wow, this is unsustainable. Like I have to come back around to myself. Otherwise I cannot, I'm going to start to really lose my ability to do the service that I love and to be a really great coach if I can't do the work myself, if I can't take care of myself, as all of the things that people say around that, of course, is that you have to put your mask on first, and you do. And I absolutely hadn't put it on.
Right. Well, and I dare say I don't know that you had ever been taught how to put it on.
Right.
Right? Because
absolutely not. Yeah.
I know has been my journey too, is I had to learn, and I had to also believe that putting my mask on first was what would help everybody the best. I know.
Just get the whole plane masked. Okay, we're good. Pilots, you good? Okay, now maybe I'll put mine on.
I know. Yes. No. I've had the same struggle, and it took a lot of research because I'm kind of stubborn and hard headed. I had to see the research too. That me taking the time to truly connect and care for myself allowed me to build self-trust, then allowed me to represent myself fairly and honestly, and then protect myself by not burning the candle at both ends to where I have nothing left to give.
Right.
Because burnout's so real in your world, and burnout is definitely real in the psychological world, because anything in the helping profession, burnout becomes really a thing. It's a thing.
Yep. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
So, I know.
So to be right in the middle of the process of doing that is great. It's great.
Well,
it's hard, but it's great.
You, Riley, have been such a beacon of resilience, a notable leader, and I think the self-connection that you're doing and all this work you're doing now is you're going to lead with a power that is just invincibility. And I'm excited about that.
I really appreciate it. I'm so glad to be working with you on all of this and the evolution, and I know it.
Yeah.
It's just really totally, falling in, like just really diving into it and feeling that, to trust it.
Yeah. Well, your self-connection is my podium moment. So
I can't wait.
I'm super proud of you. And thank you so much. And I'm glad that everybody got to meet you. And what a great time that we've had. So thank you for coming on the show.
Much. Thank you so much for having me. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Well, we'll just take this off air and we'll have some more fun. Okay. Thanks for watching.